Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
In a world where podcasts are a dime a dozen, one show dares to stand out from the rest.
The Film Board, a podcast unafraid to tell it like it is.
We're here for one reason and one reason only. Downloads.
That's right. We review new release movies because that's what gets people's attention.
But just because we're in it for the clicks doesn't mean we don't take our job seriously.
We're part of the Next Reel family of film podcasts, and we're proud of it.
Our reviews are just as insightful and thought-provoking as any of our other film podcasts.
It's just that this podcast is all about that sweet, sweet SEO.
The nectar squoze from the tree of Bing.
We're only human, but we're also creators.
And creators eat clicks to survive.
So if you want honest, unfiltered opinions on the very latest movies right on opening weekend,
delivered with the self-awareness of a team looking for downloads,
then tune in to The Film Board,
where every download counts, but yours counts the most.
Do you like movies?
Do you like sports?
I never played that sport on the screen, but I really enjoyed how the movie made me feel.
Well then, have we got a show for you. The Adrian Moment is where my friend Ocean and I discuss the triangulation of sports, movies, and life.
We dive deep into the movies, discussing how they relate to and have affected our lives.
We will talk about why the sport matters to the movie, why you don't have to love the sport to enjoy the movie, and mine a few nuggets of meaning inside the story you may not have realized was really there.
After listening to our show, come join us for more conversations about the movies that portray the thrill of victory
and the agony of defeat.
Find the Adrian Moment podcast on your favorite podcast app and join us while we cover the sports you love and the ones you never think about.
You will never see sports or sport movies the same again.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Star Wars Generations. Friends, you've gotten to hear from Aaron, you've gotten to hear from Alex, but more. This is my time. I am taking back control of the podcast. We're going to talk about my favorite episodes from season 1 of Clone Wars, and I know they're beloved by both of my other co-hosts, so we will have a lot of fun things to talk about for sure. But I am talking about episodes 11 through 14. Really, we're talking about two different arcs is the important part. The first one is the Dooku Captured arc that has a second episode that doesn't need to be named, and then the other arc is the Lurmen episode, which is called Jedi Crash and Defenders of Peace.
Misa want you to name that second episode.
You mean the Gungan? Oh.
So I apologize. Alex has lost audio. Not quite sure why it is. I think I had heard something about referencing a certain race and character gets you kicked off the podcast. I don't know how it works, though.
Interesting.
But Aaron, let's start with you. Kind of what's your overall take on these 4 episodes?
I can add myself back to the stage.
Andy's gone. Okay. Y'all are fighting like children now. You're going to make me be the adult? I'm the youngest one.
That was so funny. The power.
What did I think? You asked the first 2 episodes, correct?
Just in general, like these 4 episodes.
These 4 episodes have a special place in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have a preference to the second 2 episodes. Those meant a lot to me growing up, and I don't know why. But also, I'm just gonna say it at the top, and I'm probably gonna mention it again. But Aayla Secura was one of the first cartoon women that I saw that was curvy and had a female anatomy in her belly area instead of just being a flat stomach. And that was honestly a huge confidence booster for me. I was like, oh, even Jedi have a pooch.
Mm-hmm.
So I really love her as a character. Also, one of my favorite Star Wars couples is her and Commander Bly. I think they're so fucking cute together. Nice. So I just absolutely love seeing them at any point in time. And also some really good Ahsoka in those episodes. I love to see Rex. Anakin's there too. Anyways, and the first 2 episodes are just really good. It's some classic Anakin Obi-Wan duo bullshit, and I just love it. Yeah.
What about you, Alex? Oh, sorry, Aaron.
I was going to say, obviously, Hondo is introduced, so that's incredibly important.
Yeah, I mean, Hondo is one of the best characters in the Clone Wars, one of my favorite characters, and so his introduction is incredible. I always love a classic Obi-Wan Anakin fuckery mission. It's also funny because you get to see like a little more. I always really like when you get a little more time with characters you don't get a lot of time with, and we in general get a lot of time with Dooku overall. Like, I have to like he's present a lot, but it's very like just like impactful moments. You get to like see a little bit about him, and the banter between Obi-Wan and Anakin and Dooku is some of my favorite in the show.
That's great.
You know, I very much enjoy the fact that fucking Jar Jar Binks is sent to negotiate, and it's funny to me because Palpatine is aware that his own apprentice is trapped there.
So, Aaron.
Oh my God.
So Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Seriously, can we just not? I hate Jar Jar. Fine, go ahead.
It's important. It's part of the story. But
it's really not.
The fact that like the Chancellor sent him to negotiate for his future apprentice and current apprentice is wild behavior to me. Very funny. And then the Lurmen episode is really fun because it shows you, you know, I don't know. It just shows you, I feel like what, you know, other planets and other species in the galaxy are like. We want to be neutral. We don't want to get involved in your world. We have our own customs, our own values. And like when they butt up against the Jedis, you kind of see how the different Jedi, you know, interact with that. How Ahsoka is learning on the spot. Even Anakin is super level-headed at first. I'm like, damn, Anakin, wow, you can be level-headed? That's crazy. I love that for you. Probably because he got a concussion. That's probably why he was acting a little weird. But yeah, I don't know. It's just fun. And like, it's also crazy to me that they invented a entire weapon that would have been really helpful in the war, and we see it one time, and then it's never brought back ever again.
And when Anakin cut that machine up, suddenly the blueprints burst into nothingness.
Gone.
Nowhere.
Silly.
Well, Lock Dodd figured out that he wasn't going to get promoted, so he was like, fuck this, I don't care.
I'm taking it down with me.
For me, these 4 episodes, it's funny because they're 2 of my favorite story arcs. It's kind of perfect that they're all in a row because they give us like the 2 broad side, like 2 totally different directions that I think Clone Wars at its best in. One is when it's enjoying comedy. As you guys have talked about, this is the introduction of Hondo Ohnaka. This is Dooku and Obi-Wan getting to snipe at each other and being sassy queens together. And every now and then Anakin interrupts and they both are like, shut up, kid. And I just love everything about all the dynamics in those episodes. And then the second 2 raise some really powerful questions about war and peace and the Jedi. And I think we're going to have some fun time discussing it because I don't know if we're all going to be in agreement on those. So with that, let's kind of go into this first arc. Aaron, can you give me a quick plot summary of what happens in these first 2 episodes?
Oh, shit. Okay. So episode 1, we are introduced to Gundarks. That's what I gathered from that entire episode. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yes, we are on the home planet of Gundarks.
Yes. And basically, like, Anakin and Obi-Wan are trying to track down Dooku. They all kind of Dooku crash lands. They are hunting him in a cave, and then Dooku traps them in the cave with poison gas and Gundarks and walks his little ass away. He runs into, wouldn't you know it, Hondo Ohnaka. He's like, Hondo's like, that's a very nice ship you have, rich gentleman. I think you should pay me because I happened to save your life. Wow, you should thank me. Dooku's like, okay, I'm being extorted, but I guess it works. Like, I do have money and they have a ship, so
game recognizes game. Dooku's down for
game recognizes game, and so he's down with it. And then they actually imprison him and auction him off to the Republic, where Palpatine and some Jedi then choose, you know, some Senate representatives to go deliver spice, which is crazy that the Republic is fine dealing in spice, but Hondo asked for spice,
kind
and
of a curious thing.
They're like, okay, let's send boxes and boxes of spice. Anyway, so they send some Senate people, all that. And then they also say, Anakin and Obi-Wan, you guys are you're in this sector, in the area, right? Like, how about you go ahead and just check in, make sure Dooku's actually there. Because, like, Palpatine tried to play it off. He was trying to be like, guys, it's a hologram. It's totally fake. He was, like, trying to cover Dooku's ass, and it didn't work. So Obi-Wan, Anakin gets sent. They're like, haha, Dooku, you're so lame. Haha, you got tricked by pirates. And then they immediately get drugged by the pirates and are also in prison with Dooku. Sucks to be done. That's how the second episode starts. Basically, they try to escape twice. It doesn't really work. The Senate representatives and clones finally make it there and kind of roll up right as they break free. And they're like, let's go. But Dooku already dipped out because he's Dooku. So yeah, that's kind of my summary of those episodes.
Well,
Well, the beginning of the episode is just like sets up that Anakin purposely got captured in order to I think they're trying to
Right.
capture Dooku.
That was one of the best conversations.
Yeah, and like Obi-Wan walks into the room and Anakin tries to get a jump on him, and they have this whole silly little banter, and then they pull up on Dooku and they have more silly little banter. I feel these 2 episodes are just Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Dooku having silly little banter, and Hondo trying to profit from all of it.
Yeah.
I'm actually disappointed that the other Senate representative, what's his name? The other guy who died.
He died. I don't know.
Whatever his name is, he seemed kind of cool and interesting, and I wish they hadn't just
baller.
introduced him and killed him off 30 seconds later, because he seemed like a very interesting character. But yeah, he does die, and that's real tragic. And the last time I'm going to mention he who should not be named is just that he when Jar Jar buries him, a little Easter egg is he puts his staff in the mound, and that staff is actually the Indiana Jones staff of Ra from Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's an Easter egg that George Lucas threw in there. That's just a
so
fun little fun fact.
I found the senator's name. It's Karras.
Karras?
Karrus.
Yeah, Senator Karras. Wish you had more time on screen, dude. You seem cool. You seem cool.
So rewatching these episodes, I again found them hilarious. I love the introduction of Hondo. Although Hondo's one of those characters who I feel like doesn't really come into his own until maybe the 3rd time he appears, because I don't honestly think that the writers had any idea they were introducing the person who'd be the primary pirate we deal with for the next 7 seasons plus all of Rebels. I think he was just supposed to be maybe a 1 or 2 off character, and then the fans loved him. But in this, he's a little darker. He's a little more, doesn't quite have the humor that he gets to, but it's still very funny. He keeps talking about his dear beloved mother, who taught him that 1 hostage is good, 2 hostages better, and 3 hostages, now that's just good business. But here's the thing. He is a Weequay who we last saw as the guards on at Jabba the Hutt's palace and things like that, and who will show up as a race many, many other times. They are not in any way, they are not in any way resistant to Jedi mind powers. Why don't any of them just do the hand wave and say, "Let us go"? Is Dooku just because he recognizes game and he wants to see if this pirate's any good? Do they all just forget that they have mind control powers? Why do they keep letting these completely non-force powered people capture them?
I really don't get it.
There was something else I was trying to remember. There was a lot of silly little things like that were happening. I feel like season 1 of the Clone Wars, George is still trying to figure out the canon lexicon.
Yeah,
and it's kind of throwing shit around, and if you look too closely at it, it's not going to look good. So you kind of just got to take a little bit of a bird's eye view in this first season or 2. I feel like
I think this may be the other one you were thinking of, but Hondo tries to drug the 2 of them.
That one, yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
And they switch cups with the 2 people next to them and see those people pass out. So they clearly know that they were attempted to be drugged.
And they drink it anyway.
And then the next time we see them, they're passed out too. And it's
why did they drink it anyway?
Yeah. And also, but Force users are able to burn poisons out of their body really easily. That's been established a bunch of different times. Why does it work on them? There's just a lot of times where they're you know what? Yeah. People aren't going to look things up. This is for kids. They're not going to think about it. Well, you're wrong.
Pot armor.
Exactly.
I think these are fun episodes. There's not really that much to them, though. Is there anything else from these that you guys want to talk about?
Oh, yeah. Hold on a minute.
I got 2 quote rolls.
I need to discuss the Dooku shit a little bit more, because it is so fucking funny to me. First thing he says to them is as you can see, we're tied. I don't know if Aaron has the exact quote, but you can see we're tied together, and I've tried to separate us to no avail. He just looks so grumpy. And Obi-Wan and Anakin immediately are just God damn. And what's funny to me is, I know this isn't actually true, but in the Clone Wars, what we're seeing, does Anakin face to face with Dooku at any point before this, or was the last time when he got his arm cut off by him?
In what we've seen of the Clone Wars so far, they haven't faced each other since Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, and I don't know
because this is all told in weird order.
Right, I don't know where it
later
falls.
They retcon
what, Aaron? What?
Didn't they face off on Geonosis in the Clone Wars movie? And Dooku quote killed Rhoda the Hutt?
They did. They did do that.
Oh yeah.
Good
Yep.
calls. Good calls, Aaron. Because I was always just thinking, either way,
But
though,
not in the
it's
series.
funny as hell of it. He is like, Anakin just has to sit there and look at this man who cut off his arm, and Dooku's just sitting there all smug the whole time.
Mhm.
And they keep working together, and Obi-Wan's like, and Dooku's like, will you, what is the word? Will you control your protege's insolence?
Mhm.
And Obi-Wan's like, control your insolence, Anakin. The Count is working.
The Count is thinking.
And it's just it's so and then it's just always a little jazz like later being like, you know, be careful, you know, remember
I got the exact
you
quote.
got it, give it to me.
Hurry it up, Dooku. You should be more patient, master. After all, the Count is an elderly gentleman and doesn't move like he used to. Obi-Wan goes, I suppose you're right. Dooku goes, I would kill both of you right now if I did not have to drag your bodies.
And that line always makes me think of Anakin. Anakin's roasting this man for being slow. I'm like, Anakin, you got your ass beat by him in a lightsaber duel, and your arm cut off, and you're calling him slow, and you had 2 lightsabers at your disposal.
You know, if you could go back and like edit Revenge of the Sith a little bit, there'd be like a line of where Anakin beats him and is like, "Take this, you elderly gentleman." You know,
dude, I
like
know.
that.
You elderly fuck. It's the one
so
F word they're
fucking
allowed.
funny.
And I will say, actually, there's one last big part of this that I wanted to mention, which is that this is the episode I think that really establishes that yes, most of the galaxy is caught up in the Civil War between Separatists and Republic, but especially out here on the Rim, where a lot of this is going to take place, there's an awful lot of people just trying to make a buck. And some of them, it's and it kind of actually that's a theme also of this of the next 2 episodes we're going to take on. All 4 of them really get into this idea of who are the people who just don't care about the war, either because they don't want war or because they're just looking to make a profit or whatever it is.
I want to mention on that note, we didn't make any mention of Hondo's bullshit apprentice dude. Let me see. I got his name. Just you wait, guys. Turk Falso. Crazy that they called his name Falso. Star Wars on the nose as ever. But basically he was like, I think Hondo's fucking dumb for trying to ransom off to the Republic. Why didn't he offer him to the Separatists? Hondo was like, because they would destroy us, you stupid fuck. Turk's like, I'm still right. So then he goes and attacks the representatives to try and get the spice, and then he goes back to Hondo and he's like, shit, Hondo, they brought an army. Like, they didn't even bring spice. And then I'm pretty sure that guy gets killed.
Yeah.
At least I hope so.
Well, yeah, Dooku kills them both, and actually that part bothered me because the audio gets really quiet when he's force choking him, and you barely hear the guy going. And the one guy, his buddy is getting forced to lift it with a gun pointed at him, and his one line is, "What are you doing?" And I'm like,
he's like, "Hey!"
I'm like, no wonder you lower the audio. That is one of the dumbest lines you could have possibly said. It's just so. And like, I will say that at the end, though, I do appreciate that. Like, you know, they get to the ship. You know, they're about to leave, and Obi-Wan's just like, "Let him go, Anakin. Like, he's free. Like, we have no quarrel with you." Like, and that's when like Hondo was like, "Damn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, my best friend."
Yeah.
My best friend.
And I will say part of the proof to me that they haven't quite figured out Hondo's character is that by later episodes, they will have realized that anytime someone betrays Hondo, Hondo's going to be incredibly proud of them and be like, yes, I trained you well. Okay, now let me stop you. So we haven't figured that character out yet, but still, it's fantastic.
I want to take just one last second to spell out for you guys how Dooku killed those guys, because it was so fucking cool. Like Alex said, he's like force choking the one weak way, and then the stupid line, "What are you doing?"
Yep.
And then the guy who's being force choked, he's holding a blaster, and the Dooku uses the force to point the blaster at the other weak way, shoot him, and then Dooku finishes the job around his throat, hops on their vessel, and gets out of there. On their UFO pirate ship, which, hey, how fucking cool is it that the only ship that we see in all of Star Wars that looks like an actual discus UFO is Hondo Ohnaka's ship?
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that part. I liked it.
It's so sick. Like, well, Hondo's ships, I suppose, since Dooku took one of them. He must have several.
Yeah. So then we get into the other 2 episodes, and kind of like in both these episodes, I feel like most of the first episode is kind of irrelevant to the main thing. It's like all set up, and then the last 5 minutes sets up what really happens in the second episode. So in this one, we're kind of continuing a bit the story. We're still Dooku's escaped. Anakin, Ahsoka, and Secura are chasing him. And in the course of that chase, Anakin gets very badly hurt. They land on this strange planet. Yes, Aaron?
I don't think that's exactly how it goes. Because isn't it like Ayla's being attacked, and then they send Obi-Wan and Anakin to try and save her cruiser?
Yeah, I think it's a different. Yeah, something slightly different.
Either way,
I'm sorry. I don't mean to like be a certain way.
No.
But we just get this moment where like Anakin is like falling from a gunship onto
a certain way
onto like Ayla's ship, and he's like, "It's fine, guys," and Ahsoka's like, "What the fuck?"
No. The nits need to be picked. Like I said, for me, this is one of those times where nothing interesting happens until the three of them crash on the planet. So someone else should fill in, so I don't just kind of brush over it all.
It's just war going on the Outer Rim, and Aayla needs help, and so they send Anakin and Ahsoka to help, and then shit goes fucking astray, and we're like, oh no, we've escaped, but our ship's gonna go to hyperspace. Detach, and they're about to run into a star, and they have to kill the power of it. Instead of hitting the star, they crash into a fucking planet, and Anakin's injured in the process.
Right. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that's interesting if you're a fucking nerd. But for everybody else, the story starts when they all crash on the planet.
God damn.
I'm snarky today.
Matthew.
I love you all. I love that you love these episodes.
I said the J word too many times.
But for me, like, it's one of those things where, like, because I only remember the Lurmen story, I was just so tempted to fast forward until then. I didn't. I watched it, and I do love that people get really into those details. But anyway, they crash on this planet. They go through crazy adventures to get to this settlement, and they find the settlement of Lurmen. And Lurmen are these kind of like lemming-like creatures who have thick Scottish accents, because this is Star Wars, and they didn't for the Clone Wars, they didn't want everyone speaking alien languages and subtitles because that's harder for kids. So they just give everyone different accents. But of course, the only accent people can, it's hard to come up with a completely new accent. So they give them accents we're kind of familiar with. And so they're Scottish, and they are very dedicated, especially their leader, to peace and to not just peace, but pacifism. And they have the strong ideology that, you know, even if someone attacks you, it is better to be conquered. It's better to be, you know, subjugated or even killed than to fight back. Because if someone attacks someone else, the person who defends themselves is just as bad as the person attacking. And I think we're meant to see that as kind of extreme, but also that it's an interesting foil because of how it plays off against the Jedi. Because the Jedi eventually at first go to them for help and are saying, hey, we need a healer. We need someone to help with Anakin. And as a side note, I think this is really important. This is one of Ahsoka's first chances to be in charge, because Anakin, her master, is severely injured. He's basically kind of knocked out, and Aayla wants to stay with him. And so Anakin has to go, Ahsoka has to go off on her own. And she's really bothered by this. She's like, but it's a war. Can't you see that, like, we need to take sides, that the separatists are bad. The separatists are anti-freedom. And I have a lot of thoughts on that we'll get to in a second. But they're very strict that helping them would mean helping one side in the war. They don't want to get involved. And eventually, the leader's nephew, who's a healer, I'm sorry. And eventually, though, they do convince the leader to allow his nephew, who's a healer, to go back and heal Anakin. But that Aayla has to stay with them. I'm sorry. Yeah, I realized Aayla did go with them. And Aayla is going to stay behind as sort of a hostage to ensure that Ahsoka brings back the healer. And also that the clone trooper goes back with them because they just don't want soldiers anywhere in their village. And they kind of are going to make that deal, and it's okay. But then it turns out the separatists are also coming to this planet under the command of George Takei in a just fantastic role for him. He's just eating scenery left, right, and center. And we find out that they have some nefarious plans, that they actually want to take over this village. And the villager, the leader of the villagers, still doesn't want to fight back. But and Anakin and Ahsoka are both like horrified by this. And there's a whole discussion about, are they cowards or anything like, are they weak? Are they cowards? And Aayla Secura is the one to stand up for them and say, look, there's actually real strength and bravery in standing up for their values, even if we don't agree with them. But of course, once it's realized that the separatists are literally just going to like wipe out all these people as part of testing this weapon that destroys everything organic, but not machines, that although the leader still doesn't want to fight, his people do, and led by his nephew, a bunch of his people help in the fighting. And we have a big fight, and of course our heroes win. And as you say, they decide the weapon should never be used again, for reasons that make no sense whatsoever, but fair enough. And in the end, they all kind of turn to the leader and are like, "Hey, so does this prove that it was good?" And he's like, "No, I don't know if it does because I don't know what this is going to do to us." Aaron, you were making all kinds of faces while I was describing all that. What did you want to jump in with?
Oh, just at some point, I decided I should narrate with my facial emotions the things that you were telling.
I like it. I like it.
It's my way to keep myself engaged.
There you go. Wow. Wow.
ADHD.
No. It's because I drank like a lot of wine and I did smoke some weed. Okay.
Okay,
So
that's fine. That's fine.
It's not.
I'm not gonna lie. I was really paying attention deeply, and then someone sent me a video of a ridiculous lightsaber that is so freaking cool. So I got distracted. But there are really cool lightsabers that you can get from our sponsor, right, Matthew?
Yes. Let's talk for a minute about Level Up Lightsabers. Level Up Lightsabers or Level Up Sabers is one of our sponsors. If you go to the link in our show notes, you can buy things from them. It won't say, "Hey, you're doing this through The Ethical Panda," but as long as you follow that link, I think you get a slightly discount on your purchase, and certainly your purchase helps us keep the lights on. We get a little piece of that. They have, with con season coming up, they have great lightsabers. They have great like lightsaber holders that can go on a belt or something like that. All kinds of awesome accessories. Definitely recommend you check them out.
Also, real quick, if I may, it doesn't help us at all, but a real quick plug that Twin Cities Con pre-sale just went live, and it's live for a week, and you can get 40% off tickets. And Aaron and I are there every year, and hopefully Matthew's there this year too.
I'm hoping I will be.
So if you want to see us Aaron looks devastated. Will you not be there this year, Aaron?
I just don't have any money. I haven't been working because I'm in school.
No, that's real. That's so real. That's so fair.
If we can do a Star Wars Generations like themed something there, like maybe we can do like a panel or something like that. I think we can scrounge up some money from our helpful.
We can. They do fan panels all the time there. So, and like right now, it's 3-day pass is $100, but you can get them for $60 with the discount right now.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
Just throw that out there. We'll definitely be there next year.
Yeah, definitely check that out. All right, so. Aaron, and especially you, what? Let me take it again. All right, so Alex, starting with you, what do you think of these episodes?
Good question. So I always liked these when I was younger too, because it was like an introduction to like a new species we didn't know about. It was fun to see like Ahsoka kind of have to like learn how to navigate without Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's one of those the first times in the corners we see that lesson being pushed of like, you have to be able to let go of your master. And that's like a theme we see recurring throughout the show. It's their like codependency on each other that leads to a lot of the issues that happen in the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately.
So it's interesting to see that. I also really like, I always love, just like I liked the Layer of Grievous for this reason, I like this episode because it introduces us to a deeper understanding of a Jedi that we knew very little bit about before. So you get to know Aayla Secura a little bit. It's really cool. And just like getting to see like the ethics, again, of not only the Lurmen tribe, but like when they say like we're pacifists, we don't want to fight, or at least the chief says that, like how does Ahsoka respond to that? How does Anakin respond to that? How does Aayla respond to that? They all respond a little bit differently. And it's interesting because Ahsoka's like, what do you mean? Like this is weakness. She immediately sides with the clones. Like this is cowardice, I believe she calls it. And then Anakin is like playing.
She said lack of courage.
Yeah, lack of courage. And I'm like, and Anakin goes real high and mighty. I'm like, all right, Anakin, let's pump the brakes here. But he's like, no, it's their choice. And he says the right things. It's their choice. Like they're keeping with their traditions, all while the Jedi are throwing their traditions in the toilet for this war.
You're correct. I was mistaken earlier. I thought it was I had remembered that it was Aayla who does that, but no, Anakin. Mostly it's so out of character for Anakin.
It's so out of character.
It's so out of character.
Like right? I love my boy Anakin, but he would be the first one to be like, "The fuck do you mean you don't want to fight? I'll fight." And eventually he does say like, "Respect our beliefs, and I'm gonna fight anyway."
Yeah.
Which is very Anakin. But early on, I was like, "Damn,
Super
all right,
Anakin.
Be like really be so for real right now, dude." And I don't know. I really like the episodes. Are entertaining. It's a little different to see like a species that wants to remain completely neutral, and how even like a very I mean, a little similar to Trespass, like a more like not a primitive species, but a more primitive species, and how they are caught up in this civil war and how they have to deal with it.
Right.
Deal with the two different sides, kind of forcing their war on them.
I mean, they definitely seem to live at a much lower technology level. Like, this doesn't seem like a group that has space flight or anything like that.
No, but they're very intelligent still and have like very deep and rich values and traditions. It's just that they clearly know about. I want to know how they know about the war if they live in isolation and have no technology. I am curious about that fact.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot to say about that.
Oh, I'm. Aaron is for those who are not watching. Aaron's just like waved her finger in the air and then turned it into a slight like chin chin rub of like I've got thoughts. So I'm gonna relinquish the floor to her.
Okay, so these Lurmen, right? Let's talk about these little lemur fuckers. So, and they're great. I don't mean that disrespectfully. They say that they built their colony to flee the war. Their war. They know what clones are. This implies this has all happened in the last 8 months.
Yeah.
And yet, on the planet, they find ancestral evidence that the Lurmen have been here for decades.
You know.
Yep.
Make it make
And Ahsoka's like, they live near giant trees. I'm like, girl, sister, you're smarter than that. Come on, Ahsoka.
She's like,
yeah,
guys,
no
I have a
shit.
great idea.
No shit.
Yeah. There's a lot of this is one of those things where it's like, I love what you're painting with your overall like big brush strokes. If I look really closely, I'm going to just step back so I can look at the big picture again, because a lot of those little details don't really make sense.
This is before Filoni had a big role.
Yeah.
Before Filoni was allowed to take the reins.
Yeah. For me though, I I think it's a really important episode because it's really, we've been talking all with all of our episodes about how they're kind of keep hinting at or leaning to this idea of like maybe the Jedi are not quite as like noble and pure and good as they think they are. And this is really where we start to drive that home. Ahsoka talks about how they're peacekeepers, and he's like, how are you keeping peace? You're fighting a war. And he says, well, but they started it, which I think is a little debatable. I mean, I don't love, I'm not saying the Geonosians were good, but like they had a couple trespassers and now they're going to execute the trespassers, and the Jedi invade and are like, no, you can't do that. We're starting a war. Plus, and this is just an overall grouse that I have that I'll try to get out of the way and like not talk about too much, but we've never really gotten a solid explanation of why letting those planets separate from the Republic is bad. Like, I still don't know why it's bad. At one point, Ahsoka says, but don't you care about freedom? What do you mean? The Separatists are the ones who want freedom. They want to break away from the Republic. Anyway, Aaron, you raised your hand. What you can just jump in and interrupt me, but go ahead.
No, you're fine. Honestly, whatever I raised my hand for, I figured out in my mind was not important enough to talk about. But Ahsoka in this episode, like, I feel like she really just was representing what us children were thinking.
Yeah.
Like, she was used as a character to voice, like, what do you mean you don't want to fight? You cowards. And then it's like, to be introduced to these ideas of like, yeah, but like, what about ethics and values? What about your beliefs? Like, that doesn't always fit into, fucking war. Yeah. Or like, what happens when you are oppressed? And it's just such an interesting little set of episodes. And it's such like a deep topic to introduce to children, but it's something that it's like, I didn't even understand that I understood it.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, because I wasn't raised, like, my family, we're not like a military family. It's not like my dad was like, let me tell you about the world wars. Because I know some dads are really into that, I guess.
My dad was into Vietnam.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Dads like war.
Dads love their wars.
Dads love their wars. But that was like never really a thing. So I just like had really no exposure other than like history books, which are meaningless when you're a child because you can't actually.
Hey, hold on. I loved my history. I was a big history book nerd as a kid.
That's not what I mean. History was wonderful, but I mean, you can't comprehend war when you read about it in a book.
Oh yeah, it's fair enough.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I mean. Yeah, and so then having a TV show that's for kids, that's getting into this concept of war. And I do really like and respect that in the first season, they took the time to like try and explain and display the different sides of things, rather than it being a show that is fully war positive propaganda, because it's not.
And I will say, I think that's a very important fact. Let me back that up. And I will say, one more time. And I will say, I think it's always important to remember what's happening in the real world when a story is told, because, if you actually know anything about these things, that Star Wars has always been political. It's always been referencing stuff. The fact that it came out very soon after the end of the Vietnam War, was very intent, very much on the mind of Lucas when he told this story. And the Clone Wars is happening as we're getting into the 5th or 6th year of the wars in Iraq and the wars in Afghanistan. And a lot of the public attention is really turning against them. And we're learning a lot of things about how we got into that war. And there's a lot more attention being paid to people who are not wanting to fight in the war, or saying that it's wrong to fight in the war, and bring up the idea that like it's not cowardice to stand against a war, that might actually be a really brave thing to do. And so I do think you're right. I think that those are ideas that like adults are talking about on the news, and maybe your parents are talking about it, but an 8-year-old isn't really gonna like grok what's going on there. So to me, the fact that it's addressing these topics so head on, and this idea of pacifism so directly, I think is really important and really made a lot of sense for that time.
Well, it's interesting. To both of your points, it's something I didn't really think about too deeply before, but like Ahsoka, I've always saw Ahsoka as like the character that like you grow up with the show, you grow up with Ahsoka. Like you grow up as she grows up with the show. Yeah, I know, Aaron. I know it's you. But I just never really considered like from a I don't know, philosophical standpoint or like more critical standpoint of like she is actively, especially in the earlier seasons, used as a tool basically for the showrunners to explain these hard concepts to children. And like she like is questioning these points and like very naively asking these questions to like as an adult, as a 27-year-old. I'm like, yeah, these are some naive questions. But when I was watching the show when I was 10, I was like, so right, Ahsoka, good points, great point. And then Anakin and Aayla have to be like, no, young one, this is the deal. And then you're like, oh, Master Skywalker knows best, of course.
Dangerous lesson to learn in season 1 of the Clone Wars, but okay.
Oh my God. But it's just interesting. I didn't really think about how she really uses that vehicle to like help the children better understand these points. And I think she does it in a really effective way. And it's cool. Like, and I also like about this episode or these episodes is that it's cool to see, like, it goes to show that, especially in our current society, I feel like everyone sees things as so black and white. It's like you have to be like super liberal or super conservative. There's no in between. And I'm not going to sit here and argue politics or anything like that, but like this episode just goes to mention it was like you can honor your traditions and still move forward in your society. Like what is his name? What two?
Wag 2
Wag
is the
Tour?
nephew.
Yeah, my nephew. Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm bad with names.
2.
Excuse me. He basically says, like, I want to like honor traditions, I want to respect you, but like uncle, like the young people want to stand up. We want to defend ourselves. And it's just like, I don't know, it shows to me like a really like, I think positive approach to like, it's like the way I just like it, at least until very recently where I have to reevaluate, but I've always said to people, like I really love, I love being an American, but when I say that, I don't mean that I love the country or the state that it's in. I love the fact that I have the ability to try and make change and improve this country that I was born in. And like, I actively strive to make positive changes and try and help advance it. However, those have been successful. Well, we can talk about it another day. But point is, I think that that's a really good message being sent to children of like, you can respect and honor, the traditions and the culture of your family, but don't be afraid to advocate for change and progress and moving forward to help, bring your family and your people into the next generation. Like honor your past, but don't stay stuck in it because it will lead to your destruction, which we're seeing
100%.
in the real world right now.
Yeah.
And if anyone heard those tapping noises, that was me snap clapping for Alex as though it was slam poetry.
Thank you.
I gotta say, if you ever listen to this and think I'm missing so much by not getting to see the great facial expressions and hand movements and stuff, you can always watch us on YouTube. All these recordings are up on YouTube. I got a facial twitch that I'm working with medication to try and take care of. You get to see my face doing all sorts of crazy things. But mostly you get to watch Alex and Aaron having these very passionate responses to things, even when they're not speaking. YouTube.com, The Ethical Panda podcasts. Link in the show note. Definitely check it out.
We make very silly motions half the time too, y'all. You want to see some of the shit we're doing.
Plus, you get to see Alex disappearing anytime he says something that annoys me. So
this is true. You should see me when I talk. When I go on one of my Anakin soliloquies and Matthew lets it go, there are some hand motions being thrown out here, like I'm giving fucking Shakespeare.
Yeah. That's a perfect description of it. And the only thing Shakespearean about Anakin. No, actually, tragic.
Oh yeah, the only Shakespeare.
If we can bring it back to the episode for a second, I did want to bring up this one quote where it's when Aayla is left behind with the Lurmen. Or actually, I don't know exactly when this happened. Anakin may have been there healing at this point. But basically, she's like, no, I mean, Jedi, we're peacekeepers, you know, the whole bullshit. Blah, 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 blah. And the leader, which his name is Tiwat Ka. Tiwat Ka says to her, only when you lay your arms down and pursue a course of nonviolence can you make this claim to me that the Jedi are peacekeepers.
Yes. Yes.
And then it just rolled to the next scene. They let him have that mic drop.
Yeah. And like what he is spouting is not some totally new idea from, you know, out of Lucas. This is the practice of nonviolence, as was talked about by, like, you know, Gandhi and people like that. You know, and I think it's a really interesting, like, sort of ethical perspective for them to raise. And I really like, Alex, to go to two things that you had mentioned. I think you're dead right about Ahsoka, because to me, when I hear Ahsoka say these things that I think are kind of ridiculous, we're supposed to think are kind of ridiculous, but I don't think, oh, so Ahsoka's a bad person, or she's dumb, or she's, you know, naive. What I think is, oh, this is what happens when she's been raised entirely by the Jedi and now been told at the age of like 13, however old she is, you now have to go fight this war. You know, I think that, like, they've never really been able to think about it outside of that. And while it's most forgivable from her, Anakin has the same thing. And even to some extent, Obi-Wan has the same thing. And like, as much as I think it's a crucial failing of the prequels that they never really establish why these planets separating themselves from the Republic is so bad and has to be stopped, like, I do also kind of love it. If we think of it as intentional, it's like no one actually really asks that question. They just think this is bad. We don't want it to happen, so we have to fight to stop it. Let me though then. So with that, let's shift to kind of what we think the episode is saying about these philosophical ideas, because I asked some other people about it. We talked about it a bit on the Discord channel that we have in the True Stories FM Discord, which is great to join, by the way. You get to talk with us all week long about these episodes and topics and similar stuff like that. Link is in the show notes, as with everything else. But I brought up these episodes, and one of our fans said that, like, that they had always understood this to be a pacifism is a nice idea. Let me make sure I get the exact quote. Where the hell was it? I just had it. And one of our fans in that Discord said that, like, they like this episode, but in their words, the clear pacifism is nice but doesn't work message is slightly troublesome to me. I think that was what I thought of this episode the first time I saw it, but the more I watch it, I don't think they're saying that. I think they're actually kind of saying that, look, pacifism is a totally viable, understandable point of view, and that it might be that there's an extreme of taking it to, you know, that, like, because for some it can be like pacifism can be, I will fight if my life is literally in danger, but no other time. And then for others, it's, you know, we're going to go all the way to the extreme of I would rather die than be killed. To me, this episode is maybe saying, like, not everyone can go all the way to that extreme, and maybe they shouldn't. But that definitely that pacifism is making some important points, and they're raising some important questions that the Jedi haven't thought of. What do you kind of think the episode is saying in the end about pacifism and nonviolence and how it affects the Jedi here?
I don't know. It's tough because, you know, I think that, like, when I look at it from, like, historic lens, you know, you look at, like, how, you know, Gandhi used pacifism and other, you know, historical figures have used and, like, it's been successful in the end, but it takes, like, adamant dedication, which the Lurmen seem to have. And I feel like the episode is saying that, like, in order to, like, succeed at the pacifist route, you have to be, like pretty damn committed to it. And the Jedi claim to be committed to to pacifism, but as plainly called out by an actual pacifist group is, like, you're not actually pacifist. You kind of just preach this pacifism, and you are very quick to respond with violence, even if you say, oh, just here to defend ourselves. And, like, I think that the show is saying that, you know, like, there are, like, there's no, like, one right answer, like, you know, defending yourself versus straight pacifism at all times. Like, they have their own values and their own, I think, validity, but, like, the Jedi, I think, are trying to walk both lines, and you can't have your cake and eat it too. I feel like is kind of what's being said here. Is, like, you can't claim to be a pacifist, push all that crap and say that, and then show up to a planet of actual pacifists and say, nah, screw that. We're gonna like defend you anyway. So we're gonna like encourage your people to fight back. And I don't know. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah. Aaron, what about you?
What was the question?
Ha!
Guys, I'm so sorry.
It's
a
okay.
plane flew over my apartment and I got distracted.
My apartment, I got distracted is one of the greatest things I have ever heard in my life.
I'm cutting
Yo,
all
you
this
gotta
out.
watch this on YouTube. You should see what's happening right now.
You need to see this on YouTube. Okay. The question was, how do you feel about, like, what do you think the episode is saying about the Lurmen and their idea of pacifism? Is the episode just saying that they're just flat out wrong, or kind of what's your take on it?
No, I don't think that the episode is saying that's wrong. I think that if the episode wanted to mock or make fun of pacifists, it would have been an entirely different story.
Yeah.
I think that it was set up very purposefully to bring up this idea in a way that got like kids thinking about it or aware of it. And I think it's so important, like, that it's not about, oh, well, we're peacekeepers, but we'll defend ourselves if we need to. The Lurmen, and I mean, it's going to bug me if I don't look up his name. Tiwat Ka is very much like, no, it is not about defense and staying out of things until they come to you. It is about non-violence.
Right.
And that is very different. And I feel like that's honestly like, I mean, probably just like, I feel like it's not really something that's talked about when it comes to like the idea of being like attacked or war or things like that. It's like, I feel like if you think about like, oh, if someone caught me in the street and like threw a punch, I'm going to punch him back, you know?
Right.
Like
Yeah,
rather than,
Do you often get caught in the street?
yes, always.
Look, it'd be tough in those streets of that nice, lily white suburb that Aaron lives in. So, I live in a pretty nice suburb as well. I'm not throwing shade there. Yeah, no, I think all that's true. I think it's doing what I think a story is best at doing. It's doing what I think the best stories do, which is raise questions without giving you easy answers.
Mhm.
And to some extent, I do think that in the end is a little bit critical of the Lurmen, but much more critical of the Jedi. And part of it is just also saying that, like, yeah, this idea that when there's a war in one part of the galaxy, a group should be able to just be like, peace out. We're not taking sides. We're not going to get involved. We're going off to this other area. But that this war is so galactic and so huge that that's just not possible. And I think that's another interesting point, is sort of what happens when your idea of we're just going to be peaceful and leave everyone else alone doesn't hold up to, what other people are going to do.
All I'm thinking about is Switzerland right now. I'm going to be so honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Switzerland, like, they've also got a lot of mountains and it's really hard to invade, and they've got everyone's gold and you don't want to piss them off. And
Yeah,
there's a whole other side there, but yeah, all very true. All right. I think that's about where we wrap up. Any last comments from either of you, or last quotes you wanted to mention?
I was just going to say that I wanted to mention that in that last episode, it was very silly to me how animated the droids were about the defoliator. They're like, yeah, and they start dancing when they find out they're not going to get affected by this weapon. And I'm like, wow, I didn't think you could actually make battle droids any dumber, but y'all real found a way to do it.
I mean, in their defense, which is not a sentence you're going to hear from me very often about droids, about battle droids specifically, the B1s.
Yeah.
Like, the whole point of this weapon is that it destroys organic matter, but does not touch metal or machinery in any way. So I think this is maybe some self-awareness on behalf of the droids, that they are like cannon fodder, quite literally. And so someone having built a weapon that kills all the enemies without hurting them, I would cheer a little bit at that if I was like, hey, maybe I'm going one step above being cannon fodder.
I mean, honestly, I think it's funny. I think it like gives them a little depth. Because I mean, like, yeah, how many times do we see a battle droid just like kicked off a ledge because they pissed off whatever captain was in charge, you know?
Right. Or just because
Like-
we need comedic relief in that moment or anything like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Plus, they never say the double R word. So I'm fine with it. As long as you cross that bar, I'm good.
Yeah.
right.
Last thing, you bet I do. First of all, there was a gorgeous stealth montage that we got with Captain Rex, Commander Bly, Aayla, Ahsoka, and Anakin, all in the dark. And it's just like, I thought it was, I'm going to be honest, guys. I'm watching this in the shower. I'm minding my business. And I just like had to stop what I was doing and just stare at the screen and watch this little stealth montage go by. because it was so funny. It was set up in a way that like I remember as a kid being like, oh, that's so scary. Like it's dark and then a lightsaber flashes and then two of them, like two droids fall and then they're gone. Like, ooh. I don't know. I just thought that was like a really fun little stealth montage. I wrote it in my notes. Okay, fuck off.
Nothing wrong
And
with
then
that.
also the fact that I need it to be mentioned in this episode that the Lurmen, when they travel quickly, they roll in balls.
Yes, that was hilarious.
Like
They are
Troidicas.
like droidicas, literally. Like these motherfuckers roll. And it's a lot of fun.
They see
Also,
them
I think it's funny
rolling.
that the Lurmens are like, we're about nonviolence, right? And that's true. And then when the younger ones decide to like make a stand, they're like, we're still not going to kill anybody, but we're going to rope up all these battle droids and make them fall down so that Ahsoka can then go and easily slice all of their heads off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, they didn't cross the boundary. They just kind of pushed it all the way up to the, you know.
They just kissed it.
Yeah. They would see the Ewoks as bloodthirsty motherfuckers. Like they would, they're like,
the Ewoks.
we're just gonna like push people into the line of fire. We're not gonna pull the triggers ourselves.
Yeah.
The
I
Ewoks
thought that
committed a
was
little
funny.
murder at least. Light murder.
Just a few.
My
minutes.
final
Great.
moment for this episode. We're going back to the Dooku episodes. At the very start, when Anakin is captured and Obi-Wan comes, and Anakin's like, why do I always have to be the one who's pretending to be captured? Like, why is it me? And Obi-Wan's like, well, because you're not a master. And Anakin's like, that's just it. How can I be a master if I'm always getting caught? Obi-Wan hits him with, at least you're a master of getting caught.
Yeah.
But it's the pause. It's like, at least you're a master at getting caught.
There it is.
And it's such beautiful foreshadowing of him having a hissy fit because they don't make him master when he doesn't deserve it yet.
It's so good.
Anakin do always be getting caught in this show, though. It's funny as hell.
It's so funny. It's so funny.
Like he's a little bit headstrong or something.
No.
They're like, look, Dooku would see right through it. Obi-Wan would not get captured. But like they had to get him killed in order to let Obi-Wan go undercover, as we'll talk about in later season.
Yeah, good episode. Good arc. Good arc.
Okay, well, a couple quick things. First of all, we are going to go into our membership section in just a moment, where we're going to keep talking about the chapters of the book we're so enjoying. And of course, members are also going to soon get to hear our next member-only episode, which is going to be talking about the new Star Wars book. Is it Reign of Empire? What the hell's that book name? The book we're doing this month.
You mean the book I forgot to listen to?
Same.
It's okay. You got a week.
The book I will start listening to? What's it called?
We talked about like 3 months ago that we were going to do that this month.
I know we did.
Yeah, but you should know who you're talking to between the two of us.
Yeah, hold on. Let me just look it up right now.
Alex, we're so merciless. We're like, you should prepare for our incompetence. Like,
well,
so I can see the cover.
Well, Matthew's looking for it. I'm just gonna say that I did get I was able to get a reservation for a Lightning Lane pass for the Star Wars Celebration store in Japan, which very few people got their hands on. So I'm real excited about that. And starting on Monday, I got a war with the rest of the fandom to try and get myself a reservation for one of the major panels. I have to prioritize though. Unfortunately, Aaron, I can only make a reservation for one on Saturday, and the options are Andor or Ahsoka, and I'm picking Andor.
That's fair.
Betrayed you. I'm sorry, but I might get to see an episode before the world does. And I need that in my life.
Because Andor is coming sooner, so I can understand.
And then the day before Friday, it's Grogu and Mando, or Mando and Grogu movie panel, and I really want to see that too because Pedro might be there.
Tell Pedro I love him.
But like, if I have to pick only like one like top priority, it might be Andor.
That's fair.
And then Grogu.
Honestly,
and
I
Mando,
respect it. I'm not even going to pretend to hate on that. Like,
yeah.
Let me go back into things. Let's try again. All right, and just a couple of quick pieces of business before we end the episode. First of all, let's try again. All right, and just a few last quick pieces of business before we end the episode. Of course, if you're a member, you can stick around because we have more bonus content, which is going to be yet another. We're going to one more time. Sorry. All right, just a few last pieces of business before we close out. First of all, if you're a member, of course, you're going to get the bonus content. We're talking about the next chapter in the From a Certain Point of View, A New Hope book. And speaking of books, pretty soon we'll be coming out the next in our members-only episodes where we're doing the Star Wars Book Club. This time we're talking about the first of the Reign of the Empire series, The Mask of Fear. One I know we all talked about a couple months ago, being really excited. One we all talked about a couple months ago, being really excited about. So looking forward to that one. We're also, the next 2 weeks are going to be getting ready for what is, I think, one of the major events of this year, the Andor series coming out. Andor series Andor season 2 is going to be coming out next month. And I think we have 2 weeks before then. And for those 2 weeks, we're going to air some of the episodes we did on Andor season 1, kind of as a primer to help get you ready for that. We're also at some point going to probably have a bonus episode or something like that where we get to hear from Alex and all of his adventures at Star Wars Celebration. Then we're going to be doing week-by-week coverage of the Andor show, which happily they're going to do not the full 13 weeks, but it's going to be the 4-episode arcs. And so each week we'll be doing 1-episode arc and talking about that and bringing our live thoughts and, of course, questions and probably bringing in other guests and stuff like that. And then once we get through all that, we will be coming back to the Clone Wars season 2 and all that going forward. So you have all that to look forward to. Members, stick around. Of course, if you're not a member, you can become one for just $5 a month, $55 a year. Help support the podcast. Help pay for us maybe to get a booth at Comic-Con at a city near you. It takes a lot of memberships to do that, but we'll happily do that if we get enough. But also you get to help us keep the lights on. You get ad-free content, so you're only giving money to people you love, like us, not to those horrible corporations that are totally the ones sponsoring us and keeping us afloat. But we'd much rather get money from you directly than from the big corporations. Wow, that sounded bad. But you hopefully know what I mean. And Erin's about to interrupt me instead of just raising her hand to help dig me out of this hole that I'm digging further and further.
So I just want to throw it in there, little announcement. I will be, if you guys are in the Twin Cities, I'll be at Anime Detour on Saturday. I'm just going to go for the one day, and I will be Raven. So
awesome.
Y'all are there. Hit me up in my DMs. Hopefully I'll check them. I don't know. I've been really depressed with nursing school, so I'm not as on top of social media as usual.
Real.
But I will be there. Keep an eye out for my Raven if you guys happen to be at Anime Detour and are in the Twin Cities.
Awesome.
Matt and I will be out of state, so we will not be there.
I will not be there, but if you are a player of the game Star Wars Unlimited, the TCG, I'm going to a number of their tournaments as a head or associate head judge coming up, and we do have a big con happening here in Minneapolis in May that hopefully I'm going to teach these two how to play the game at, and we're possibly going to have a table at or do some other fun cosplay things at, and they haven't heard about this before, so you can get to see Erin's excited reaction and Alex being totally bored by the whole idea. So all that is great. Become a member. Please check us out on YouTube. Please do all the good things. Most importantly, live long and prosper.
Stay classy, Bangor.
At least you're a master at getting caught.